Most of the people start trading because they want to be their own boss and this freedom, but yet we're all literally sitting at our desk every single day and not being free.
As I mentioned yesterday, you don't find your mentors. The mentors find you.
2 weeks ago, I was speaking to somebody who lost 1.2 million. And he says, like, how can I get it back? I said, like, you can't get it back in one trade. You can't get it back. Think about it.
Even if I had that mentor, standing behind me the whole time, yelling at me, like, don't be such an idiot. You're gonna, this is incredibly risky. You need to have, whether it's stops or risk management, position sizing. Like, I probably wouldn't have listened. Learning the hard way is sometimes the only way that we learn.
Welcome, everybody. A ton of great topics and a ton of great panels so far today. And the topic for this panel was really the hero's journey. And this is a storyline that goes across different cultures, different time frames. You see it with like the story of Hercules and many different cultures. So what I want to do is take that concept. Nice.
Bring some more.
We want to take that concept and basically apply it to the trading world. So, how does a trader go through that process of the hero's journey? And that's really just the process of setting out to do something, finding a mentor, struggling along the way, kind of hitting rock bottom, and then making it through that to bring something worthwhile back to other people. And so I think everyone in this room who trades is in that process, just at different stages. And a lot of the traders up here who are fantastic are towards kind of like the full circle part of that journey, whereas a lot of other people are still maybe in the part where they're looking for a mentor, or they're still struggling, or they're trying to find edge. So with these great guests who they had an introduction already, so I won't do it again. They don't really need an introduction. We'll get right into it. And so the first part of like the traders or the hero's journey. My friend Anthony has a podcast called The Trader's Journey, so I'm going to mix that up all night. But the first part is really like this call to adventure, or wanting to set out to do something, feeling restless and just feeling like there's more that you can do. So instead of like a traditional way of going about getting a job, someone might set out thinking that they can do something that would be beyond kind of the status quo. So I wanted to start with Stan on this, and you talked a lot about people realizing their why with trading. And I just want to get your perspective, like when people set out to trade, do you think they often even know their why, or do you think that that's something that they discover along the way?
No, I think people do know their why as they need a purpose, right? They need something that drives them. I think where the disconnect comes in is where that why is centered. It's value, and it's more so ability to constantly move it if you get there. And I think Nate talked about that yesterday with Dr. Katz, and it was when you get to that goalpost, then you just move it. It's very easy, because that goalpost was something you set about yourself. And it's very easy when we are in moments of vulnerability, or moments of despair, or whatever else emotion. It's very easy when I set the goal about myself to then negotiate it, to then say, I'll give it just a little bit more time, or I'm gonna stop at the next level. I know I said that last level and the 10 before, but it's okay, I'll just do it next time. So I think that's part of the why, right? If your why is about you, from you, about you put yourself in the position to constantly change it. But if the why comes from something else, outwardly focused is the best way I describe it. It's something that, it's a value-driven why that is based on a need, that is based on a self-being, then that is something that allows you to naturally create habits that will support that. which, yes, it may come to a point where you've accomplished it, but the habits you've built are a core foundation that will support you the next time you stumble. Because it's not that you're not going to make mistakes, you will, and I do to this day. But the time it takes to recover from those mistakes is much quicker because I don't waste time associating myself with that result. I simply go back to change something that I did or didn't do.
Yeah, and then over to Nate. I know that you've talked before. Like I believe there was your uncle was into Wall Street stuff, and he was kind of one of the first people to really spark that there's something beyond just like the regular path. So is that kind of what sparked your call to adventure? You know, what was that like for you when you saw that?
Yeah, it was one of those things where you don't want to work for anyone else and kind of build your own future. And I think it's funny. Obviously, there's higher purposes and reasons why you do things, but I would say most of the people start trading because they want to be their own boss and this freedom. But yet we're all literally sitting at our desk every single day and not being free. So I think that's a similarity between everybody trying to start. So I think it's always important to kind of go back to those core values, what you're trying to really get out of this. I was head down, blinded for a very long time. So I think it's very important to kind of take a step back and maybe look more of a macro picture before life, passes you by, because it goes quick. Especially once you have kids. You start to see how fast, and as you were growing up, everybody was like, "Oh, I remember when you were this big," but then you start to see it firsthand, in front of you, and you're like, I get it. And I think that everybody's in a different position, but it's important to go back and reevaluate where you are, and it has to be your why, not somebody else's, not what they're doing. It's you, and just be true to what feels right at that current time, and that could change. You could, like, for example, if I step back and chill out for a year or two, I might be right back into it, but at least I tried and kind of explored that.
Yeah, and speaking of doing things your own way, Gregg, so the next part of kind of the hero's journey is finding a mentor, and you're unique in the fact that you did a lot of self-learning. And so I think that you're one of the few, real success stories in the trading world where you figured a lot out and you were actually a pioneer in a lot of these things. So what was that like, kind of going through that next part, maybe relying on books and your own experimenting instead of a traditional mentor?
Well, as far as the why, which I'll tie into your question, is, I liken it to, let's just say you love playing chess and you're really good at it, or you like playing the guitar and you just sit back at night playing songs, and no matter what your situation, one day someone comes up to you and he's like, "You're really good. You can make money doing this." It's like your why is not, in that case, I was practicing all that time because I had this ambition of getting paid and being a pro, just because you loved it. So for me, I just always loved playing with numbers, statistics, data. I mean, as a teenager, I'd spend hours with the sports statistics. It's like Monday morning, and I'd be all psyched to get the newspaper to look at the box scores from the NFL games. So that carried over into how I got into trading. It was not because I had some amazing fascination with the markets or trading. It was just, taking something I already loved and finding a way to make money doing it, and just like, hell yeah, let me try it. And that's to tie into your question, the fact that I was a bit of a loner in figuring it out. It's not because, I woke up one morning and said, let me figure out how to be a trader. It's because it was just an extension of something I was already doing, already loved, and apparently I must have been, at least somewhat good at it because something worked. So to not have that mentor, to me, it didn't feel like, oh my God, like how am I ever gonna do this without a mentor? Honestly, it didn't really even occur to me because I was just doing something I had already been doing for a long time. I just transferred it into a different field.
Yeah, and then Pradeep, you have been an incredible mentor to some very successful traders, including Quilamagi and some other people. So I know that you've been an amazing mentor, but did you really have one? Or when you were at that stage, when you were looking for guidance, how did you go about that?
I think when I was looking for like help, when I was looking for like getting profitable, I didn't really had a mentor in that sense. Like what I found is I found an idea, and I think a lot of time you just need a breakthrough idea to become profitable. So I had read a lot of books on trading. I had like joined a lot of services. I was doing ton of things. I think, and if you look at my Amazon account, I must have spent almost $250,000 on books on tradings and things like that. I wasn't really like finding something which was workable. And then I read this book, which at that time, Mark Butcher, there was a trader called Mark Butcher, and he was very famous at that time because he had like 3 or 4 years of 400 plus returns. And he wrote this book called Hedge Fund Age. And in that book, if you read the book, it's like almost 400 pages, and 390 pages are like macro things talking about Austrian economy and all kinds of things. But in the appendix, he says like, by the way, all this is thing, but if you really want to make money, I have the short-term trading, which I do, and it's like 4 pages, right? And I read that, and suddenly like bells started ringing. Okay, look, this makes sense because he gave a complete methodology. This is how we scan for it. When you read books on trading, it doesn't give you a methodology. It just gives you some ideas, right? So that became the foundation of what I do. Now, as to like me mentoring people, I think a lot of people give a lot of undue credit, like Christian Quilamagi, when he's still on the side, but like I don't knew him personally till I met him, or he didn't like, in the sense of like me mentoring him, sitting with him and giving. No, that's not how it works. I don't think that's how it works in this industry. It's you borrow idea from people, you see something which has worked for somebody, and then you see it makes sense for you and you make it work. I think a lot of time, like, okay, unless you go into a proprietary firm where there is real mentorship, you're not going to find a mentor. Be realistic. I don't want young people to get this idea. Somebody is going to be like a hand holding you and giving you. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, you pick up ideas from people, and your ability to make them work is what is most important. I think, and if you sit next to him, and he's a very successful trader, and if you shadow him for 6 months, and you still cannot become profitable. Will you agree? Because it's unless something changes in your mind, where there is like some sort of a clarity and it like falls into place and you understand. Like Christian Quilamagi joined the site and he just understood the idea of episodic pivot and he made it into his own idea. Now that's how this industry works. I think this mentorship, yes, nice to have, but realistically 99% of the people may not find a mentor in the few years when they're trying.
I think that's actually like a pretty hopeful thing because a lot of traders might be waiting for kind of like a one-on-one type of mentorship. But like Gregg was saying in his talk yesterday, all the information that you need to really be good at trading or to succeed, it's out there. And so those ideas and those people who are doing it are already out there and they're accessible to pretty much anyone. So Nate, I mean, you've been kind of in the state where you have, a lot of education out there and things. I think a lot of people have built their trading style off of your style. And so it's not so much you directly mentoring them, although you do that as well. But do you think that, for someone who's looking to kind of get that information, how do they find someone who is credible, someone who they should actually be paying attention to, as opposed to just looking up, buy on green, sell on red, or something that you find on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process. You have to figure out what works with your personality. So, similar to you, you're not going to just model and just copy and do exactly what that person does, but you take a little bit of everything. And I think me and Stan, do a lot similar, but he's got his own little twist to that. And then people will take that piece from him and a little bit from me and a little bit from maybe a Christian Quilamagi of bigger picture and mold into something that fits their current life situation. and I think that that's the most important part, is to always kind of be learning. I'm always looking at other people as well to see how I can better improve, whether from an entry perspective, or why were they so bullish on this? What was this particular theme that they saw, and when did they see it, and how early? And then that way I can be more prepared for the next time. So it's just really about just always filling your head with knowledge, and brushing shoulders out here, and introducing yourself, and coming with more than just like a hello, but like share your experience, share something that kind of shows that you've put in the work. And I think that pretty much that anybody that's come here after the event, I feel like those relationships are much closer. They put themselves out there to come here, and you kind of always want to put your best foot forward for them.
And then Stan, because you and Nate have worked together for a very long time, and you've mentored under him, and now you mentor a lot of other people. What's the process of making his strategy your own strategy, or like for Quilamagi, making Pradeep's strategy his own strategy? What does that look like?
Right. I mean, I think for one, if you are looking for a mentor, I invite you to more so just feel as a student, always feel as a student, because then everyone is your mentor. And it's just your job to kind of filter the information, and then what makes that person's strategy your own is when you put your own twist. It's when, we could be looking at the exact same data, same charts, same tape, same everything, but we have our own lenses. We just can't do anything about that. So it's more than just taking someone's verbatim 1 through 5 and executing it 1 through 5. It's not going to work, because even right now, if we were to share a screen and I share my entry and my size and everything to the minute, 80% of the people here will get it wrong. And maybe not these people, as what Lance mentioned, this is the survivors, right? But if you, like I said, theory of large numbers, if you just populate it through the trading audience. So it's having that drive. It's defining who you are. It's defining what you need to do, and then like Nate said, putting yourself out there. It's, as I mentioned yesterday, you don't find your mentors. The mentors find you, because at some point down the line, or you did something or said something that they saw themselves in you at your point of the journey, and now they're invested. So conferences like this really help when you put yourself out there and meet people and share your journey.
I would add too, just as an example, like Moist Mango, if he's in here, just the fact that he put himself out there, did an interview and things like that, and then all of a sudden he's just DMing with Lance on the most volatile day of the year. And I think that kind of proves that point of putting yourself out there and being able to get in those rooms and connections, and being able to share those thoughts in real time at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., or whatever it was. And I think that is neat.
Yeah, definitely. So the next kind of step in the hero's journey is struggle and growth. And this is really where I think a lot of traders spend the most time. People might quickly realize that the market's for them or not for them. They might be able to quickly or not quickly find a mentor, but I think no matter who someone is, they all take time to struggle and grow. And so it's really about them trying to find consistency, trying to find real edge, and to be able to do that in the real world. So Gregg, as someone who's kind of did that process on their own, did you feel like it was a big struggle, or did you feel like it was a problem to be solved? How did you go about really finding your edge, and how much time do you think you spent doing that before you found consistency?
Well, I decided when I wanted to give it a shot at trading, I decided I wasn't going to place my first trade till I had something that I was confident would work. So going back to my past, with playing with numbers, essentially I just took it as a challenge, as a game to kind of figure something out that would work. And I didn't really know what to do, but I just plowed into it head first, and kind of made it a full-time endeavor, just to figure something out. And fortunately, I stumbled upon something that was, that really did work right off the bat. So I was very lucky, but the catch is I had no idea all the pitfalls that were involved in me, because I had no idea about blowing up an account and drawdowns. I was just like, okay, this is going to make money, but I didn't realize all the different situations that could occur that would destroy you. That's the part I had to learn the hard way, and that was a learning experience which, perhaps in hindsight, a mentor or somebody could have really helped me from the beginning to be aware of that, rather than having to go through enormous emotional anguish trying, having some of those setbacks that are just completely devastating to your self-confidence. And 6 or 7 months in, like, I almost quit because I had a trade where I lost like 60% of my account, and I'm like, maybe I should quit while I'm ahead. But, I kind of regrouped and just decided, well, maybe I'll just trade small, and, it was working. So, maybe I'll just, I kind of scaled down my whole ambitions, my goals. But within a few weeks, I got my rhythm back, and, the hell with that, I'm going for it again. And, so in hindsight, even if I had that mentor, standing behind me the whole time, yelling at me like, don't be such an idiot, you're gonna, this is incredibly risky. You need to have, whether it's stops or risk management, position sizing, like, I probably wouldn't have listened. Learning the hard way sometimes the only way that we learn. But, hypothetically, if I had that person and if I was willing to listen, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble and perhaps, sped up the process. But then again, some of the best lessons learned are the ones you learn the hard way.
Yeah, and Pradeep, you have said that you approach the market from a solutions-oriented kind of position, so that these struggles, they're problems to be able to be solved, and that problem solving is an exciting and a creative process, and focusing on that as an exciting and a creative process is something that inspires people to work hard, as opposed to saying, this is a problem, I can't figure this out, the market is doing this to me. And so it's just kind of changing your perspective. So how did you come about that perspective, and how do you apply it in the real world?
To me, like, whenever someone is unprofitable or someone is a new trader, they've not found solutions to their problems, right? I see a lot of new traders, I see a lot of struggling traders I talk to, and any successful trader, you look at it, like, I trade a breakout method, and when I talk to a lot of traders, they'll say breakouts don't work. But I made breakouts work, right? So you have to find solutions to your problems in trading, and the successful traders have found solutions to their trading problems. The difference between those who don't make it and those who make it in this business is just that you found workable solutions. They are not perfect solutions. In this trading, there are no perfect solutions according to me. You just have to find workable solutions to where to put a stop, where to take profit, how much to put to position sizing, and things like that. Now, this problem-solving approach is something which, if you have inherently, that is how you look at a problem. Like, when I started in this particular industry, and I had a lot of problems, like, I had every problem which a lot of people here who are new to trading have. And what was my way of solving my problem was very simple. There's a famous German philosopher, and he said, like, there is no problem in the world which cannot be solved by walking, right? So I used to have problems about, say, entry. I would walk. I would go on a walk for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I came out with 3 or 4 possible solutions, saying, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. Go implement solution 1, see what happens. If solution 1 doesn't work, try second solution, try third solution. If it doesn't work, you go back on a walk and find 3 more solutions, right? Means you have to be at it, basically. You have to find a solution. Like, a lot of time I talk to traders who are struggling, and I just tell them, look, can you try this and come back to me? And then they come back and say, okay, I tried this and it worked, right? So you have to have that live approach to anything which is to solve a problem. Easiest solution, easiest thing is to say, like, it's very difficult, but can we find 3 solutions? Implement solution 1, solution 2, solution 3, see which one works. If it doesn't work, create 3 more solutions. And that approach, I think, works in the long run because that gives you a self-control. It gives you the ability to be able to solve your own problem because you're never going to be having in your trading. And I've been doing this for 24 years. Some of you have been doing for many years, more than me also. The problem never ends in trading. There is always a new problem, right? Once you make money, size becomes a problem, or like you don't want so much volatility, that becomes a problem. Problems are always going to be there. So your ability to solve your problems is the most important thing. The second thing, in order to solve problems, you need to be creative and you need to be innovative, right? Unfortunately, this is my biggest beef with the industry, trading industry. Everybody tells you to be disciplined, right? I went to a boarding school where huge on the full school, there was a big board which says discipline builds character. Okay, I can tell you that, and I had a reunion some years ago, and I went for the reunion, and every single one of the kids who made it big were the one who were, I always got into trouble when I was in school because discipline was the last thing, right? We are very innovative, creative, getting into trouble, trying to beat every single rule the school had, right? The people who made it out of my batch were all, the people who were very disciplined, they didn't make it. Or they're doing well in life, not that they're not done well, but the people who were the troublemakers, who were constantly innovating, constantly coming out with crazy ideas, have gone and built businesses, done something. And that is exactly what this business is about. You look at traders. There are many traders here. None of them are trading same ways. Everybody is trading different ways because they found creative, innovative solutions to their problems. So once you get into this creative, innovative way of trying to solve your problems, a lot of your trading problems will look very small.
Yeah, and Nate, kind of piggybacking off of that, you tried a lot of different strategies early on, and then you came across some things that just really worked. And so, for instance, like you might have been interested in shorting something, but you might have had some problems anticipating when was the turn coming in or something, and then you come across an idea like failed follow through, and it just changes the game. So you kind of knew what you were going after, but it took a pivotal moment or a pivotal strategy to really put that into play. So can you just tell us about how did you kind of come across some of those strategies that allowed you to take the idea and put it into practice?
I mean, being on the wrong side of the trade, gives you probably the easiest answer to that. But just going through and looking at where your biggest losses come. Go back through a year and look at your 8 to 10 biggest losses and add them up, and you'd probably be very scared about how big that number is. And if you can condense those, or at least avoid the ones that are taking the most from you, how does your year look after that? And so I've gone through and even with like certain things with failed follow through in certain market environments, kind of understanding where you can get away with things and where you can't. I've talked to a lot of people about like even a 1,000% winner, like a TNON or something that happened, CHSN, that just happened. You have another week or two of traders that are trying to chase that same exact thing. So whereas you might typically take a trade on any given day, in this current market environment, it's better to pause a little bit and wait for that actual confirmation. I'd rather be a little bit late. I say this often, but it's better to be like 30, 40, 50 cents late than $2, $3, $5 too early.
Yeah, and then Stan is the king of context. So whatever trade is happening, whatever setup or anything, it's never just about looking at it from really close up. It's about looking at it in the context of what else is happening. Like Nate was just saying, is someone struggling trying to put a short strategy in play while everything's going straight up, like during COVID, and a lot of people fought that for a year or 2 years. So what are some tips or what are some ways that someone might be able to get more context around their trades? Because if their strategy is working maybe 3 months out of the year and they're still doing that strategy for the other 9 months, but it's not working, they're going to struggle. So how do people get more context?
I think one of the main things is just zoom out. regardless in what time frame you trade, you trade. I think having that top-down approach that provides the context from what happened before, what is happening now, and then perhaps after you see it for so many years, so many examples, then in a way, I almost envision what the other side should look like. And then it just becomes about being, in the trade management, and as long as it's going in the direction that I have envisioned, then I don't touch it, right? Don't touch it. As to what Gregg said, you could make 200-300%, but guess what? You missed 5,000 because you put some arbitrary number out there that, okay, this is good enough, instead of just following it and letting the kind of chart guide the way. And it doesn't mean I'll look at a context and then I'll envision what the chart should look like and then that's it. No, at any point it's like little, okay, oh, now we're doing this, got it. So then from this point we have these couple possibilities, and then, okay, now it's this one, and it's like this little tree that happens. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just what happens in my mind. And it's having that context though, right? It's what sets the tone. It's what provides the guiding rails down the bowling alley. It's like it's keeping me within the trade. As I go to veer off, and then if something changes, okay, I get an opportunity to reevaluate. I get an opportunity to renegotiate my risks, renegotiate my exposure, or whatever else is happening, and just let the trade manage. So having that context, for me, it starts with the higher time frame. So always zooming out, because that sets the tone for what's to come.
Great. And so this question is kind of to Nate and to Gregg. So Nate is really known for pulling up comparisons, so kind of on like the context thing. So you'll have a name or a stock that's running, and Nate will be like, okay, this is doing exactly what this stock did. And he'll do that constantly. And so that's the first part of it. Now, Gregg, when you were giving your talk that hopefully you'll be able to finish later on today, you were talking about indicators or things, and while a lot of indicators that show up on charts might not be very useful, there's a lot of indicators that don't show up on charts that are useful, and doing something like comparison, or like this reminds me of this, that's been very helpful for Nate. Do you also do that, or do you do a version of that?
So if I'm understanding you right, what I hear is so essentially pattern recognition, seeing patterns of how the bars or the charts are playing out, and absolutely yes. And to me, it's every trade has some nuance or variation that's just, always at least a little bit unique. So it's a matter of pulling in all the different variables and identifying which are the ones in that particular instance, which are the ones to focus on. It's sometimes a particular indicator or some other variable which works a lot of times is completely irrelevant on one trade, but you're always putting together parallels to something else you've seen, and then and just piecing it together. I mean, perhaps it's like if you're playing poker. I mean, there's so many potential different hands. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but you could probably play thousands of times and never have the exact same hand, but you're still gonna see patterns or different things that click. And it's a matter of being able to see it in not just in the sense of this looks like this thing, but it's like it pops out at you as in like this is a really strong, good version of this particular pattern, and piecing it together like that. So anyway, as far as your question, I think I'm getting to it. Was there another?
No, I think you nailed it. It's basically, in the context of, getting a better read on something, being able to use things that might not necessarily show up on a chart, but they show up somewhere else, and whether it's like a recent example or a current market environment or something, just to help you to get a better read on something to help your trading and to build towards consistency.
One last little point, I didn't have much time yesterday, but I pulled up a slide trying to make a parallel from, like technology for self-driving cars. They had to find a way essentially for pattern recognition, like, what does a person riding a bicycle look like? And there are millions of versions of that, and no two are the same, yet to a human being, we'll never make a mistake. We know what that looks like, even though it's never the same twice. And to a trader, it's sort of like that, and it's never the same twice, but yet, somehow you've seen it enough that you're able to label it, and you're not second guessing, like, I wonder if this is such and such, where as a computer, all it could do is assign a probability, oh, I think this is a, whatever you want to call it, bullish flag, and it's never going to say it with 100% certainty. It's always going to say, 96% chance, but to a human, we don't have that. We look at it and we're like, that's one of those, and it's a really good one. That's how we think. We generalize, but yet it's actually very accurate. Like, once you've done it enough, you're generally not going to be wrong once you know what it looks like, and you just piece together different patterns, and when several line up, you're good to go.
Anything to add to that, Nate? Or
No, I think it also helps to understand like the personality. Stan talks a lot about personalities of stocks as well, but yes, is it doing the same thing? But then at what point does it differ from that? And that could also help with a potential long opportunity. If you were typically looking to short it, the same thing as last time, but then the behavior changes and it starts, basing over a prior level, hypothetically, being able to recognize that sooner, knowing that most people likely recognized it for the same thing before, likely all crowded on the same side, being able to adapt and see that kind of quicker has been very beneficial. Knowing when not to short, really aids to the long side opportunities too.
Definitely. And so kind of the next step in the hero's journey is the great test. And this is usually an inflection point, or a point that it's kind of like rock bottom, or when someone has been struggling, they've been trying, they've been growing, they've been testing, they might have had some success and then setbacks, and then they have something that is just a really hard hit for them. And whether that's something with their account or something outside of trading that makes them question, do I want to do this? Is this worth it? Is this pain actually worth going through to get to the other side? So Pradeep, when you see traders kind of hit this point, and I don't know if you've reached a point like this along your way, there's a lot going through their mind. What do you think they need to really think about to know whether or not it's worth to go through with that pain?
I think what happens is, like, when you find yourself into that kind of a situation, and I had that many years ago when I started out, and I was very, very aggressive trader when I started out. Like, I used to put 150% position, 170% position, going on margin all the time. And I was long a biotechnology stock, and I was like 170% leveraged on that, and it opened 37% down. Gap down, and by the time I closed the position, it was like almost 43% down. So I lost so much money, and that shook me up, because this was like first time. Till that time, it was like not so difficult. I had losses, but not to that magnitude, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't trade for 3 months. I was like just completely paralyzed, physically paralyzed and mentally paralyzed, right? So same thing happens. I came back, I redesigned everything. I don't trade that same way now. I don't have like that kind of crazy positions on biotech. I don't trade biotech with any size like nowadays for that reason. But when traders come to me, and I talk to a lot of traders who are struggling and all, what happens is when you're struggling, almost your brain shuts down. And you're physically also, like when I talk to them and I get into a Zoom meeting with them, and you can see in their eyes and you can see in their body language that they are just like, they're hit a wall, or they're incapable of thinking what is the way forward from this particular situation. They like feel trapped. And that unfortunately stops you from experimenting, and also you have so much loss of confidence that you don't know what to do. Now, how do you get out of that situation is really the key, and that's where, like, basically I always tell people, look, and do baby steps, like make $5, just make $10 a day, and then make $50, and then make $500. Break this problem into, like, people come to me, like, and I was just like 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to somebody who lost 1.2 million, and he says, like, how can I get it back? I said, like, you can't get it back in one trade. You can't get it back. Think about it. Make 1,200 trades and make $1,000, right? But they are incapable of thinking like that because the body reaction or our survival mechanism paralyzes us when we get into a situation where we feel that there's no escape out of this. So in order to get out of this, sometimes, like a lot of time, it's better to take a break from trading. Take a complete 3 weeks, 4 weeks break from trading, clear your mind, come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. Also, you need to be willing to change your style. Sometimes it's the style which you are inherently chosen, which is not going to be working. You need to be willing to experiment. You need to be willing to completely unlearn certain things. And that's the only way you can get out of that situation. Otherwise, physically, people get paralyzed, I've seen. And then because of that, if you're physically paralyzed, then you cannot think mentally solutions. And that's the only way you can come out of these kind of slumps or the drawdowns. When you get into these drawdowns, you have to recharge yourself. You need to recharge your energy and then apply a different strategy. If this is not working, what can I do? What is the other way I can do this? And those are difficult challenges.
What a fantastic answer here, Greg.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I mean, a few weeks ago, Nate and I went on the honor flight trip, and I mean, I just want to say, those guys went through legitimate trauma, that we'll never touch anything to that degree. That being said, what you're describing, the trader that lost 1.2 million, honestly, the way it's processed internally is emotional trauma, like to the same mechanisms going on as if you came back from war and you witnessed people getting killed. I mean, it is deep and internal, and that's something where someone like a Kim Ann Curtin can come into play. It is hard. It's hard to just rationalize your way out of it. You can't just go to someone and, how do I make my money back? I mean, you have much deeper psychological issues that have to be dealt with in order to get yourself out of that position. And you have to take it seriously. It really, you go through something like that, and 10 years later, when you even have the tiniest sliver of something that resembles it, it's going to trigger all those fears and anxieties all over again. It doesn't leave you. Even if you've had 10 years of success, it still gets triggered, and it's tough.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, I'll move on to the next step. So after the great test and the hero's journey, it's if people make it through that, if they come out the other side, they are usually the people who actually end up succeeding and kind of getting all the rewards of their effort and all that pain, and it pays off. And so once people make it to the other side and they kind of come full circle and they're able to have that success, what do they do with it now? And they can really share that success with other people through either causes like this, or they can give back in other ways, and whether that's through education or mentorship or something else. So Nate, as someone who has kind of come full circle, what does it mean to you to be able to share those rewards with other people, and what does that feel like to come out the other side and to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's rewarding. I love being able to put these on and meeting new people, and I love for example, even I think Bryce was saying yesterday, the first 3 years he was here is unprofitable. And then, here he is up on the stage kind of, mentoring and teaching, others. And we've had a lot of those people that have come up as attendees the first few years, or even a very good friend of mine who, literally is 20 years old, has, just starting to find a little bit of success and goes on to become the most incredible trader that I've ever known. And, it's just incredible to kind of see that journey and be a small part of it. And I think that's the most rewarding part of all of this.
And Stan, same kind of question.
Right. Yeah, I mean, very similar to Nate. To me, everything that has been good in my life, every success I've had in my life, I can trace back to directly being a result of me helping somebody else or doing something else. There's always some sort of a trail. And for me, that's my next stage of learning. It's how I learn. I guarantee you it's not a one-way street when I help someone or when I try to go over a concept. It's always a two-way street. I learn behavior. I learn, I just learn. There's so much value for me, and I feel that's what drives me.
Absolutely. So we've kind of come full circle with the hero's journey and how it applies to trading, but I think it's also worth mentioning that this framework or this storyline that is, everyone kind of can resonate with it in some ways. It doesn't just apply to trading, it can apply to the next phase of life. And so for someone who's kind of come full circle with trading, they might be trying to work on their next hero's journey with, their family or with some kind of charitable endeavor. So I think we are out of time, but gentlemen, thank you so much for your input. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with the community, and how about a big round of applause for these guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. No problem. Thanks.
Do we want to grab some questions here? I mean, you got a couple of minutes here. Anybody want to ask them something?
Do we have time? Okay.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes. This is group panel Q&A kind of stuff here. Anybody up?
Yeah, any questions,
We need to
please?
rekindle the fire. 1 second.
I mean, I told you he had a strange sense of humor. I've been telling you this. Okay, we got a question over here. That was Gregg, right? That made the cardboard?
Yeah. Who else?
Let me see this damn thing.
Be careful.
It is fragile.
I told y'all. Who was it? Right here. Okay.
Hi. So, as a new trader like myself, there are so many takeaways and insights I have gained in the last 2 days. And I understand that setbacks are part of the process, but tomorrow, I open the charts, how do I feel confident about my next steps? I almost feel like I'm gonna start fresh and new tomorrow, even though I've been profitable, but almost scared from this point.
Well, I don't have the perfect answer to that, but I do have something I think could add. When I come to conferences like this, or I do anything in order to expand my knowledge and education and trading, sometimes all these little pieces of information, they kind of just get absorbed in the background. You don't wake up the next day and suddenly, have this brand new trading strategy and you suddenly, everything's changed. But over time, you'll find that, those things just somehow slowly start to appear in your trading. It's a process. It's, a lot of it's subconscious, but over time, you start to absorb. And, 5 years later, it's just, you notice that, a lot of those things, have slowly become a part of how you trade.
Yeah, I think during situations, as soon as next week or the months, you're going to be like, oh, that's what they were talking about, and you start replaying and adding that into your arsenal. But patience and be cautious. I remember Mikhail. He was told everybody go, 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 and I remember Matt was like, whew, that was Monday wasn't good.
All right, we got one more question. Actually, we got a couple more questions.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to say thank you guys for giving your time, man. This has been really impactful for me. Even before I came watching you guys on YouTube and meeting with some of you guys personally, I just became profitable, man. I've been trading for 10 years, and so my question to you guys is, if you're not going to find that active mentor or be a part of a prop firm when you do get that mentorship, is now that you're taking that step forward and you take trades and you say, oh, okay, you know what, this didn't work, but how do I correct it? I find myself struggling with being not only the coach, but the player and the therapist. And it's how do I know that the actions I'm taking to correct are the actions that are correct to take? or who do I reach out to? So if I'm going to start a pod or join a pod, then I'm always worried about, well, if I'm joining a pod, how do I know if the guys that I'm joining a pod with had the answers? And I think Pradeep's take a walk and come up with 3 solutions might be the way to do it. But if you guys have any advice on that, man, I'd be appreciative to hear it.
I think, and for not only for you, for anybody who's new or starting out or struggling, I think always I tell them to do a deep dive, which is basically you need to look at 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 example of what you are going to be trading. The more you do a deep dive, because it's if you are going to be training a general, you cannot put him into a war. But if you go to the officer school for officers, what is the first thing they tell you? You have to study every single war which has happened. So if you study a lot of setups which you are going to be trading, you'll find answers. So I always answer, the way to do this is to do a deep dive, to build it's the same thing. I was not a professional, but I was playing chess when I was in college. And how do you become a good chess player? You become a good chess player by studying every single historical chess matches, right? The grandmasters, they have studied every single chess match which has happened in the past. So the more you study the history, and that's why I have a daily process. Today I don't need to do it, but every day I study stocks which are at 20% move. Every day I look at stocks which are at 50% move. Then try and find out where signal should have been taken, how this trade should have been managed. The more you mimic actual trading in your mind, then when you actually get into the real situation, it becomes easier.
Okay, we got time for one more question.
Hello, guys. I'm Jose. So I have a question. I've been trading for 5 years now with a lot of ups and downs. And mainly because in my community or area, like in Angola as a country in general, you have very few people who believe that you can actually make money through the markets. So which means my references are usually the guys who have been on stage and all the other guys I've seen on YouTube within the community. So I don't really have people around me who I can relate to, because whenever I want to share ideas with someone else, at the beginning people see it and think it's kind of cool, but when they see the work that you have behind actually making a trade, they end up giving up. So I end up just being talking to you guys online, and then it affects me because whenever you want to talk to someone else, even now I came here and everyone is like, you must be crazy. You cannot go to the US, catch 2 8-hour flights just for this trading thing. Plus you have to pay for the entrance. The mindset that is behind it. So I'm actually fighting against that, and I see it affects a lot on my trading as well. Because whenever I'm doing well, I try to share with someone else, and they're always saying, you're probably going to lose the money on your next trade or whatever. How do I overcome that part of not having people who I can directly relate to? Thank you.
I think a big part of that is in today's world, being physically there is not always required. So you don't, and I'm talking about outside of this conference. I think the fact that you made it here speaks to your character and your commitment to this craft. So that's absolutely fantastic. But outside of that, you can choose to put yourself out there. For me, I think I was a nobody probably 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not that I wasn't there. It's not that I didn't exist. I was a nobody. But that was a choice I made. I chose to stay private and in the shadows, and then it wasn't until I put myself out there. And the reason why I did that is because I had a vision to help others, and I couldn't accomplish that vision if I chose to stay private. That wasn't going to happen. So that's my advice to you is put yourself out there, because You want to do the right thing. And when you share something, share it because you think it's going to help somebody. But don't expect anything in return, because that will always lead to disappointment at some point. So if you're able to put yourself out there, fearlessly, right? Don't worry about what others think. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. They don't pay your bills. So put yourself out there. And again, I can see that you're on the right path because of your actions. And don't let the distance discourage you. Don't feel alone, right? You're not alone. There's so many traders right now that just heard what you said and are probably in the same position. They feel the same way.
I want to chime in real quick. It's a very common experience that family, friends, neighbors, whatever, like they don't get it. They don't support it. They think you're doing some crazy idea and you're gonna, just gambling away your money. And even to this day, I think Nate and I have talked sometimes. Like you have this crazy day. You've been through all this stuff with money all over the place, going up and down, all kinds of stress. Day's over. You don't just sit down and all of a sudden have your wife or kids or neighbors to sit down and talk to. They don't get it. I mean, you're alone, but that's why we're so fortunate today where there are online communities and conferences, because these are the people. It doesn't matter where you live. Like you can't look to those people to understand, to support, because they don't get it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just they can't relate. No matter what. They're just never going to be able to relate.
Right.
It's a very lonely profession. Like no one understands you. Only traders can understand.
Yeah, and I think just by asking the question, putting yourself out there, you're going to have 3, 5, 10 people come up to you on the next break and say that they're in the same position and be that sounding board that you need, that you're not going to be able to get with the people back at home.
All right, everybody. It sounds like everybody's going to burst into tears right here, but let's go ahead and burst it into joy here and applause. Thank you guys for this amazing panel.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to trade live alongside me and other members of the Investors Underground community, then check out investorsunderground.com to see if becoming a member is the right decision for you. They have some of the best technology and a lot of great members there, all looking to help other people improve their trading. And also check out Investors Underground content on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you.